Human trafficking is surrounding all of us. It's modern-day slavery and a billion-dollar industry that is victimizing women, children, and men. This video will look at how the government is fighting human trafficking, specifically at the state level of Iowa and nationally, and how the government could do a better job of protecting the victims.
So, what is prostitution to you?
I think anytime that you are selling sex, it can be a male or female victim. It can be by a family member. The perpetrator could be a family member, and perpetration is both by the person who's choosing to sell another person's body, and it is also by the person who's choosing to solicit sex from another person who is being coerced.
What are some of the effects that victims experience from being victimized?
I think it can be really a range. There is a lot of shame that is associated with prostitution. A lot of times, if someone is trafficked, they can feel guilty because, maybe that's what second decision that they made to go this way, or, they trusted someone who betrayed them. There can be things that they fixate on, that they feel responsible, and it is never someone's fault for being victimized by someone else, whether they were trafficked, or whether they were trafficked by a parent, or they trusted someone who later victimized them. That is not someone's fault, but there's a lot of shame associated with that profession of prostitution, and there's a lot of just hidden factors that we don't necessarily think about, because these are people, and so they may feel so trapped into this lifestyle that, given the opportunity to leave, given the opportunity to escape whatever situation that they're caught in, even if they are free to walk away, they may not be able to, because of financial reasons, because of social pressures. Like, they may have a child, and that child is basically held hostage or kept from them, or they don't have parental rights to their child. There are so many factors that can keep someone caught in prostitution or in a human trafficking setting, and those are real pressures. Those are, who are we to ask someone or judge someone for not being able to leave their child, or for not being able to leave everything and everyone they've ever known? And I think that's really important to realize, is that they are real people, and they have real reasons, whether it's safety concerns, financial concerns, or they really do have things that are preventing them from leaving, and it's hard sometimes to see all of those.
What are some issues that you've seen just with the government, with laws and policies regarding human trafficking or victimization and prostitution, that might prevent women from deciding to come forward and prosecute?
Currently there are a lot of issues, and most of them are very practical. So one of the things that it can be experienced by a victim of trafficking, it can be experienced by a victim of rape or sexual violence, is that their home address becomes a part of the court records, which are given to the defendant. And so regardless of whether that defendant was able to find them previous to the trial, they are actually put in more danger, more physical danger, because of their choice to prosecute. There's also laws that give the defendant the right to face their accuser, and there are some ways around that with children. And so the victim has the right to have an advocate present. And so they have to be in the same room as their abuser. And that to me is horribly re-traumatizing, because this person who has harmed them now gets an opportunity to look them in the eyes. And they have to name and describe what was done to them as a result of this other person's actions. And that is extremely difficult to do. And there's not often a lot of options for that victim as they face their perpetrator and their perpetrator's lawyer, which is asking them questions, details, their history, their sexual history. And these are conversations that most people blush at. And so having a very controversial conversation about their own past trauma and their own history with someone accusing them of wrong, that is extremely hard. And actually most cases do not make it past that point. Even if someone decides to pursue a trial and pursue prosecution against an abuser, it usually ends at that point because the victim is so traumatized by what happens in that room where they have to face their abuser and are accused by a lawyer of wrongdoing, that the trial is actually stopped. So I think that is a huge hurdle for victims in the justice system currently.
Victims are so traumatized by their experience that many times they cannot face their pimp, John, or Madame in the courtroom. Like it was said in the video, sometimes these victims are free to leave, but normally they cannot afford to. Other times, the pimps require an exit fee of an outrageous amount that they cannot afford due to giving all of their income to their pimps. Or they are physically threatened and are not allowed to leave, or they have a child that they cannot leave. In Iowa and other parts of the United States, one way to get the victims out of human trafficking and prostitution is to be picked up by the police and be charged with prostitution. Being charged with prostitution is a felony, which will go on people's permanent record. This has many implications on being able to find a job and support themselves after leaving. By struggling to find a warm place to stay, food, or money is what keeps the victims stagnant in their spot as the trick to be turned under the control of the pimp. In the United States, there are many efforts being done to change the laws at the state levels. One project that is working towards ending human trafficking also provides many statistics. This project is referred to as the Polaris Project, and it has been working to change laws at the local levels to attempt to fight this modern-day slavery. The hard part about focusing at the local level is the fact that local law enforcement has jurisdiction issues, so this is almost better handled by the FBI. According to the Polaris Project, there are still 11 states left who have not sufficiently changed and updated their laws enough to protect those against human trafficking. Sadly, Iowa is still a state that needs to update their laws. One thing that they could do to sufficiently help their law is to create and pass a human trafficking hotline. They also need to help assess civil damages and to also create laws or improve laws for minors and protecting them. I'm not saying that all of Iowa's laws are bad. I'm just saying that Iowa could do a better job at regulating and creating laws to fight against human trafficking. In Sweden, there are laws that fight human trafficking. In Sweden, they go after the Johns and the pimps. They don't go after the victim. They don't prosecute the victim and say that they've done something wrong. This is a much more efficient way of going after the problem. Now, I'm not saying that Iowa doesn't do anything right. They do a wonderful job at working with the police force. They train their police to know
how to treat these women who have been victimized. It gives them a sense of hope, and those police officers who do understand are now able to help get those women out of prostitution more.